Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome again to the People to People live Facebook broadcast and on YouTube, I think, today, for a market update on what's happening in the Australian and New Zealand markets for employment and jobs. It is a wintry day here in Sydney, overcast, probably about 19 degrees. But for some people, I reckon it's going to feel like summer, because today you can actually go to the pub where you're having a meal and have a beer. I think that's in New South Wales and in the Northern Territory. So it's going to feel like summer for a few people today. And for our New Zealand audience, welcome to level 2. So things are obviously changing out there in the marketplace. But what we're going to do today is we're going to cover off a few things. I'm going to give you a quick overview of market conditions for jobs in the last week in Australia. We'll catch up with some other job market current affairs. We'll do our regular numbers section. We'll update you on the latest stats released this week for the employment market. And then we'll be joining Kim Padmore from our Perth office, who will be giving us a market update on what's happening in Western Australia. The job of the week, or the opportunity of the week, James Dalton will be giving us some detail there. That's an accounting vacancy, and we've had a few inquiries in regards to accounting vacancies, so we thought we'd get James on to talk about that. And finally, Catherine Kennedy will be giving her job Huntsman Tip of the week. I'm still mentioning that. Our back office refuses to put a Huntsman up on the screen. Job Huntsman Tip of the week, finally, and I'll give you some dates on some up-and-coming events as well. So if you have any questions during today's broadcast, then please put them in the comments, and we'll see if we can add them or answer those questions during the commentary. So let's get started then, and start with my market wrap-up for this week. So it's been really a steady market, I suppose you'd say. I mean, we are certainly nowhere near returning to what the market was like late last year, but it's steady. It's a steady performance week on week. So in terms of the number of vacancies that have been listed with us. So I think I mentioned last week in this broadcast that I felt that we had reached the bottom of the market probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. I really do feel that that is the case, but what we're not seeing now is a rise. So if you think of a V-shape versus a U, we're very much in a U-shaped situation in terms of the jobs market at the moment. And frankly, I don't see any change in that until people are back in the offices, which we're starting to see some of that happen around the country now. Anecdotally, I'm hearing on the grapevine that engineering roles within the government sector are still holding up as well, and some technology positions. So it's interesting there. Temp work has slightly improved week on week. We've had some customer service roles, quite a few come through, particularly for our sister company, Frog Recruitment in New Zealand. We did a whole lot of work for New Zealand Post over there last week, where they were looking for people to answer the queries about where's my package. So it was quite a good piece of work that we picked up there. So there is some temp work, but again, we're not seeing the normal rebound that you'd get when during a downturn where the temporary market normally comes back first. So very much still at the bottom of the market. A reminder also, again, that we're still working with the Queensland government on their Job Finder initiative. So I just wanted to repeat that today. www.jobfinder.qld.gov.au if you want to register for their Job Finder assistance or initiative in Queensland as well. Right, so let's talk about the numbers, and it's been an interesting week this week. So our usual numbers section, I think last week we did in particular industry sectors. This week I was going to do a deep dive into one of those, but I had forgotten that the unemployment numbers actually came out yesterday. So I wanted to share a little bit of analysis on the unemployment numbers. So it's not good reading, and you would have seen the Treasurer yesterday talk about it, but 594,000 people lost their job in the last week. So, in the last month. So that's a lot of people who have entered into the marketplace. The previous record for 1 month decline was 189,000. So to have that sort of level, it is remarkable to see that number of people lost their job in the last month. Unemployment, though, kicked up 1% to 6.2%. So that's a 1% increase. You can see the graph there. We're back to sort of 6.2% back to 2016 levels. And it's unusual. Most pundits thought that that number should be around 8.5%. So why is there not a correlation between the unemployment rate and the fact that so many people lost their work? So there's the unemployment, those who joined the unemployment numbers were about 100 and something thousand, but we had 500 and something thousand people lose their job. What's the difference? Well, the difference is the number of people who were no longer looking for work. So the way the stats are compiled is that they actually ask the question, were you actually looking for work in the last 2 weeks? And so the next graph that I've got for you shows the actual number of people who are in the number of the population who are no longer looking for work, and you can see that spike right at the end. So essentially the reason why the unemployment rate didn't rise as much as the number of people who lost their job was that the participation rate dropped. That is, that a lot of people just weren't looking for work. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens over the next little while. I have no idea why that number of people were no longer looking for work. Taking a guess, you'd say that, well, they're at home, there's health circumstances, anything could, although the lockdown meant that they were no longer looking for work. So very interesting numbers this week. Next week, what I'll do is I'll actually do that deep dive into a particular section of the jobs market as in terms of the number of vacancies listed there to see which parts of the job market are doing better than others. So look out for that next week. So now let's move to our spotlight on a market and let's start a conversation with Kim Padmore in our WA Perth office.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, for WA, I mean, not too dissimilar to a lot of our other states where most of our markets have been hit quite hard. Looking at Seek Analytics, the biggest sectors that have been affected have been, number one, trades and services. So we saw an almost 7% decline in the number of job ads online compared to this time last year. Interestingly, though, within that sector, floristry and carpentry are two areas of growth. Obviously, people can't go out shopping, so they're sending flowers instead. And people are doing a lot of home renovation now as well. So I think that would explain the carpentry side of things. The other sector was actually mining and resources that's seen a huge decline. So just behind trades and services. Within that, though, operations have seen an increase. So mining operations is on the up, whereas specifically mining engineering is down 12% here in WA. It's not all negative news. We've had some very positive conversations this week. Personally, in our office, we're a lot busier this week as well. There's a lot more activity. We're seeing for us the property space has really picked up as well. So we're currently working on a couple of assistant property manager roles as well. So they're on our website if you are interested. So I think with the return to work for WA, we're going to start to see a bit of a market shift and an increase.
Oh, that's very interesting. Is there any other particular surprises? Do you think that you've seen?
Yeah,
over the last couple of weeks?
I think a couple of things. So the first thing is there's actually been quite a few candidates who are looking who are settled in permanent, stable positions. And I think the reason that they're starting to think about moving now in such an uncertain time is because of the way that their employers have dealt with the situation. So I had an interesting conversation last week with a senior EA who works for a global firm. The firm haven't communicated well with their office here. So her and many others are actually starting to put themselves in the market at this time. The other surprise, I suppose, is the fact that we've been able to return to work from next week. So it seems to have happened quite quickly. WA's numbers are quite good. And also all schools in WA are returning as of next week as well, if they haven't already. So, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how that translates through to the jobs market. You guys seem to be right out front there, I suppose. Even if you're not going to the pub, I don't know if I saw that you can go to the pub in the Northern Territory, but maybe not in WA. But maybe you can get a job in WA by the sounds of it. So
yeah, and you can dine out from next week as well. So already booked up a restaurant. I'm ready to go.
Excellent. Thanks, Kim. That's fabulous. So now let's we'll see if there's any questions out there at the moment. So Kim, how about the accounting market? Is there any?
Yeah.
Have you got any comments on that? And how can people reach your office? What's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, so accounting for us at the moment, there's been a decline in most role types in the accounting world, apart from audit. Audit has seen an increase, and actually on the clerical side of things, we've had a couple more roles coming through for accounts assistant type positions. So there is a little bit of movement there. The way you can contact us here in Perth, so we're based in the CBD on St George's Terrace, so 182 St George's Terrace. We will be back in the office next week, but we can also be contacted by phone on 61606200.
Yeah, and of course, if anybody really wants to reach out to Kim is all over social media, Twitter, LinkedIn, and of course, you can just visit our website. Instagram. You can visit our website as well. Great, fantastic. Thanks, Kim. So now let's move on to our opportunity of the week, and this is accounting related as well. So James Dalton.
Hi, Mark.
Nice to see you. So we've had a few queries over the last couple of broadcasts where people are asking specifically about the accounting market, and once again we've had that with Kim today. So I thought we'd get on or talk about an opportunity that was specifically accounting related, and you've got I think it's a property finance manager role you wanted to talk to us about today.
Yeah, that's right. So this is a permanent role. It's with a mid-tier property development business based in the CBD. And these guys are particularly looking for somebody to arrange funding deals for their business, because they're actually debt-free and in a really good position to grow at the moment. So they're looking for somebody who's been involved with arranging funding deals with banks and second-tier lenders as well, and constructing deals up to $50 to $60 million. So it's quite an exciting, newly created opportunity for this business.
Yeah, that's interesting that it's newly created. And the fact that it's the property sector as well, so there's still activity there. What sort of salary are we looking at for that role?
Yeah, so ballpark is from 150 to 180,000, and that's depending on experience. And there will be an LTI bonus component. That's to be confirmed, but that will also sit on top of the base salary.
Okay, excellent, good. And is there anything, just so if there are people watching this today and they're thinking, well, am I right for that? Is there anything specifically that they would be looking for?
Yeah, so really I'd be interested in talking to people who have been working for similar property development businesses in a similar role, and have developed relationships with banks and even non-bank lenders as well. And then also happy to hear about people who have been working for high-profile non-bank lenders too, and they've already got relationships with other property developers. So it is quite a specialised role within the residential commercial property space. Okay,
great, fantastic. And I realised that we haven't mentioned that you're based in Sydney. So this is a Sydney-based, New South Wales-based Sydney CBD role. David has said, can you tell us where it's actually based? And we've forgotten that. So there you go. And what about how do I apply?
So the best way to apply, the role will be advertised on the P2P website, and it'll also be advertised on Seek as well, and other job boards. I think Indeed will be one of those.
Okay, fantastic. And we've got, we'll put the link actually to this specific vacancy in the comments on Facebook as well, so that if people want the direct, they don't want to have to search it out, it will put it right there as well.
Yeah, feel free to reach me directly on 02 8270 9702 as well.
Now, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask you, because everyone's asking about the accounting market. How would you describe the accounting market in Sydney at the moment?
Yeah, look, naturally the demand is lower than what we would be expecting this time of a normal recruitment year in the cycle. But we have been seeing some encouraging signs in sectors such as disability services, mining, aged care, and also education software. I was only speaking to a CFO in that space just this week who are interested in hiring even FP&A candidates. So there's some good signs, despite, I guess, the general sort of market activity, that some industries are still looking to bring in new talent.
Fabulous, fantastic, rightio. So yes, once again, you can get in touch with James on all the different social media platforms, and let's just check to see if there are any other questions. No other questions right now. So thanks, James. And now let's move on to our next section, which is our job Huntsman Tip. Now, our marketing department watching on this thing here. There's the slide. No Huntsman spider. Catherine Kennedy.
I'm sure, hello, Mark. I'm sure I could find probably about 15 huntsmen in my very old Blue Mountains house if you really wanted to next time.
Excellent. So you've got a tip for us on video interviewing, yeah?
Yeah, I thought that given the current circumstances that we're in, video interviewing would be a good thing for me to run through. So video interviewing had started to gain some momentum even prior to this COVID crisis, but given the situation that we're in, it's almost the new norm. So just wanted to share a couple of things to consider when you're preparing for a video interview that might be in addition to your normal interview prep. So there's a whole bunch of stuff on our website around general interview preparation. So you absolutely need to do all of those things prior to a video interview. So things like making sure you're really well researched, making sure that you have a really good understanding of the role that you're applying for, of how your experience and skill set is relevant. You can articulate why you want this job. There's a whole bunch of other things that you should be doing. But specifically when it comes to a video interview, there are some other things that you need to consider. So the first thing that I would say, which is really probably the most important thing, because it won't happen, the interview won't even happen if this doesn't work, is to check your technology. So there's a very funny video that's been doing the rounds. I don't know, maybe we can find a link for it and share it, but I think it was from the New Zealand Police, which is basically a lesson in what not to do in a video interview, and that's you can't get the mic to work, the camera's facing the wrong way, the speakers aren't happening. So please take some time to check all of your technology. Call your mum, call your friend, have a test run to make sure that that works. The context that you're sitting in also needs to be considered. So you want to be sitting somewhere with a background that's not going to be particularly distracting for your interviewers. You want to be uninterrupted as best you can. Now, I say that with a 5 and a 7-year-old running around in my house, so hopefully they don't come and interrupt. But
we could go all BBC interview on us.
Yes, I could. Yeah, I could. Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have a nanny. To come and take her out. So, but yeah, the background and where you're sitting is really important. As is the way that you present yourself. So I think it's really important that you dress just as you would for an interview if you were going into the office to meet with somebody. I think that's really important for 2 reasons. One, it's the impression that you make, and you really only get that opportunity once to make that first impression. But certainly for me, it's also a mindset. So I think, you put your corporate clothes on and you get in that corporate mindset versus if you're in your activewear or your mummy clothes or whatever. The other thing that you do have the opportunity, or that is an advantage with a video interview, is you can have some notes in front of you, and so that can be helpful for you. But I'd really just caution against referring to them too regularly, because you don't want your interview to happen like this. You want to use the opportunity, and it's harder to engage with people in the same way that you would if you're in the room with somebody when you're on video. So you really need to make a conscious effort to make eye contact, even though it's on a screen, but to be really having a face-to-face conversation rather than them seeing the top of your head. So there is a really good blog by Jess Hickey from our Melbourne team that's been published recently, so we can share a link to that. There's a video as well that she's done, and then on our website is a lot of just general interview preparation tips that we can share as well. Sure. Yeah, hopefully that's just a couple of tips for people, given most interviews are via video now.
Fantastic. Now I'll just check the questions to see if there's any specific questions or in relation to the video. We do have a question here which is not related to videos, but does people-to-people work in the aged care not-for-profit space?
Yes, yeah, we do. So particularly in our Western Sydney, actually it's not just unique to Western Sydney, but I know in the Western Sydney office based out of Parramatta, they've got a number of clients in that aged care not-for-profit area. doing commercial roles, so accounting and HR and that sort of thing. But there's a couple of the consultants that have started to do roles that are more specific to that sector. So yes, we do. If you'd like more info, then perhaps you can just reach out to me directly and I can connect you to the right person. And the best way to do that is via 02 8270 9700.
Great, fabulous. Well, another question, quick question here, which is so it's a job hunting tip, but not specifically to related to video. And last week, I think we made the suggestion that resume should be 3 pages long, and David's asking whether. Is that the case? Should it only be around 3 pages long if somebody is also a contractor and been contracting for a long period of time, versus should 3 pages only relate to people who have had permanent jobs in their history?
Yeah. Look, I think different people have different views on this, but I think if you send a CV that's 10, 11, 12 pages long, it's just not going to get read. That's the reality, is people are not going to necessarily go through all of that. So if you've done a lot of contracting, I think it's best to highlight your key skills and highlight the systems experience and the things that are really relevant to an employer, and then have really just a quick sort of an employment snapshot that shows the key contracts that you've been in that might have some achievements and key responsibilities. But if they've been shorter term contracts, that it just, really just sort of says the time that you worked there. And you would probably, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Kath.
I was going to say, you'd probably preface, in the beginning of your CV that you have been a contractor and, that you've had that wide experience across different organisations. And you can go into more detail in your interview if you need to.
Yeah, I've seen people condense contracting roles into what, so it appears like one role on a CV. I've seen people do that as well. Great, thanks. I'm conscious of time, so thanks, Kath. Thanks very much for your job huntsman tip of this week. All I need to do now is tell you about upcoming events. I just wanted to let everybody know that we do have some regular, so obviously our Facebook Live every Friday. We have regular webinars that are coming up. Our team in New Zealand at Frog Recruitment are running a webinar next week, and then the following week is on leadership out of People to People here in Australia. I'll put links to those webinars on the Facebook comments as well, so keep a lookout for those. The poll results too, we didn't run a poll last week, but we're going to run a poll this week on Twitter, which again I'll put the link in, and the question will be, are you changing the way you get to work? So and now that a few of us are returning into the office, are people changing their behaviour when it comes to commuting back to the office? It'd be really interesting to see what those results are. Thank you once again, everybody, for joining us, and for everybody around Australia. So Kim in WA, James in Sydney, and Kath all the way from Huntsman spider infested the Blue Mountains. So thanks everybody, and we'll see you all next week at 12:30. The live broadcast from People to People. Thanks again.